Bad News Brown, or Bad News Allen, depending on where you may have seen him, was also announced this week for the legacy class of this year's WWE Hall of Fame. The master of the Ghetto Blaster. First man I ever remember seeing hit an enziguri. Bad News Brown. I remember him from his WWF run, but he has a very interesting background. He won a bronze medal in judo in the Olympics back in the 70s, and then 2 gold medals in the Pan American Games. And he was even honored in Black Belt Magazine's Hall of Fame. So he trained to be a wrestler under Antonio Inoki in the New Japan dojo. And he actually spent almost 15 years off and on wrestling with New Japan. He spent time working for Stu Hart in Stampede Wrestling, which is where he met his 3rd wife. And he had 10 kids between all of his marriages. He almost had as many as Stu did. What's in the water up there? What's going on in Calgary? What did Stu and Helen have, 13? So he claimed that when Stu folded the promotion and he made a deal with Vince McMahon for Brett and for the Bulldogs to go work for the WWF, I assume Neidhart was also part of that deal. But he has said that he was to have been part of that deal, but his wife was pregnant. I'm sure. Fucking 10 kids. So anyway, he didn't make it to WWE until 1988. And by that point, when he came in, he was already 45 years old by that point. I mean, today he'd be headlining WrestleMania at that age. But he didn't even start wrestling until he was in his mid-30s. So you hear about guys like DDP and Batista starting so late in their careers and having success. You can add Bad News Brown to that list. I think he did pretty well for himself, even though he wasn't a top guy everywhere. He may not have achieved the same kind of success and notoriety that a Batista did or a DDP. But still, for a guy who started wrestling at 35, I think it was, I think he did pretty well for himself. He did not enjoy his time working in WWE. Said Vince McMahon made promises to him that were not kept. There were always money issues. He said, I never had these issues working in other places. I worked in Japan for all these years. And if promises were made, promises were kept. If I was told this is how much I'm going to make, this is how much they paid me. And he said with Vince and WWF, it was just nothing but just constant lying and constant money issues. He has 3 WrestleMania matches on his resume. The first one being the opening Battle Royal at WrestleMania 4, which he won. He eliminated Bret Hart to win. He got this giant trophy. As a result, Bret got back in the ring and he destroyed the trophy. I mean, this thing was absurdly big. I think he did Bad News a favor. I can't imagine how he would have gotten that fucking thing home. But that was Bret's first babyface turn. And his first feud as a single star working for Vince. Now, he was still part of the Hart Foundation. I mean, he was doing the tag team thing until 91. But he worked a singles program on all the house shows with Bad News for months after that. I think through at least June. WrestleMania 5, he had a quick throwaway match with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And WrestleMania 6 is the one that he is most remembered for. Not because of anything that he did, but because that is the match where Roddy Piper painted himself half black. Not one of Piper's finest moments. Although if you take him at his word, he had no ill intent with that stunt. He wanted to show that it didn't matter what the color of your skin was, because he represented all people. This is how he explained it years ago to Arda Ocal on The Score in Canada. Piper said, I was born in Saskatoon. There are no black people that I know of that are dumb enough to go to a place that cold. So there's no racism in me at all. At the time, I was walking down the hall of some arena, maybe the Hoosier Dome, someplace. Vince McMahon says, Hot Rod, I need to talk to you. I walked into a room and you could have cut the air with a knife. It was Bad News Brown, Pat Patterson, and Vince McMahon. I said, what's going on? He says, I want you to wrestle Bad News at WrestleMania. And I'm looking at Bad News, who is a really good judo player. A judo player. I love that. Like he played baseball. And just a so-so professional wrestler. And here's what's going through my mind. I'm looking at him and I'm going to have 45 interviews about this guy. And I'm thinking Nelson Mandela at the time had said something that really stuck with me. He was put in jail for 20-some years for political crimes. Every morning he was the first man when the guard came to extend his hand to the guard. What a hell of a man. At the same time, Cyndi Lauper had True Colors out. In my mind, what I was trying to do, there is no difference. I needed material on Bad News Brown. The stuff they had painted me with, Vince had made special so that when I broke a sweat, it wouldn't come off. There was a special clear solution to take this special black off. When I got there, the lady started rubbing my cheeks, and in about 5 minutes, I started bleeding. Andre the Giant had taken that solution, poured it out, and put water in it. Now I'm in Toronto, half black. I decided that there's nothing much to do other than just go out drinking. So I go, and I'm drinking, and I'm half black in the bar. Next morning, and don't judge me, I wake up, and the door of my hotel room is blown completely off, and there's a cowboy hat in the middle of my room. I don't know whose. I wake up, and I'm half black. I got to go from Toronto to Portland, Oregon. I've got a 4-foot Mickey Mouse with me that I bought for my daughter. So because I didn't know, I put the hat on, and I've got a 4-foot Mickey Mouse, a Halliburton, and a hangover. And I'm half black. I'm completely half black, other than the scar under my eye. So I'm going through Chicago, and I'm going through customs. And when you're half black and half white, they just go right ahead. They part like the Nile. In Chicago, I had to change planes, and the flight attendant wanted me to check Mickey Mouse because it was too big. So I bought Mickey a first-class seat, and me and Mickey drank all the way to Portland. The way I got it off was that I had to sit in the sauna. It took me about a month of rubbing this stuff off. But what am I going to do? Go beat up Andre? That is a hell of a story right there, I will say that. But he also main evented house shows with Hulk Hogan. He wrestled Randy Savage for the WWF title. They actually just uploaded a match to the vault between Bad News and Savage from early '89. It was a street fight. And it was something, it was like out of any of the shows today. It was right down to bringing the table into the ring. I never saw anything like this back then, watching WWF. And then they had a bunch of those matches back then. Usually they call them a Harlem street fight. Bad News played babyface because this is when Savage had just turned heel on Hogan heading into WrestleMania. So those later matches they had, Bad News was sort of the de facto babyface. But he left the company in 1990 after a feud with Jake the Snake Roberts. He claimed that McMahon had promised to make him the first black world champion, and he went back on his promise. And he continued wrestling until he was well into his 50s, mostly in Canada, Mexico, Japan. He went back to Japan. And he was even part of a Stampede Wrestling revival in 1999 as an announcer. He was paired up with, and he was a color commentator, and he was paired up with a young Mauro Ranallo. How's that for an announce team? Bad News Brown and Mauro Ranallo. I got to find footage of that somewhere. He died of a heart attack in 2007, 3 weeks after getting a hip replacement. He's another one of those names from that era that just doesn't get as much love as others because his big mainstream run with WWE was so short. He spent most of his time working in Japan, but he always struck me as just like a no-nonsense guy that just showed up, did his job, got paid, and went home. Which I guess he would have to with, that many kids at home. I don't think I've ever heard any stories about him getting into trouble, like serious legal trouble or like ribbing, like disturbing ribs on other wrestlers or anything like that. The two famous stories about him both involved Andre the Giant. The one where he overheard Andre casually throwing the N-word around on the tour bus. So he said something, and Andre told him, hey, Bad News, go fuck yourself. So he tells the bus driver to pull over, and he tells Andre to get off the bus and say that to my face. And Andre wouldn't do it. He wouldn't go. So the next day at the hotel, he happens to bump into Andre coming off the elevator, and he tells him, look, I don't appreciate you using that word. You don't see me talking shit about your people. And if that's how you feel, then fine, but keep that shit to yourself. So Andre apologized to him. There was still tension there for a very long time between them. They didn't speak. Even if they were passing each other in the locker room, they didn't look at each other. They didn't speak to each other. He did say that not long before Andre passed away, they sat down, they talked about it, they buried the hatchet. The other story also involves Andre. And it was the time that Andre accidentally took a shit on him in a match in Mexico. So Andre got sick. I don't know. Maybe it was Montezuma's revenge. I mean, who knows? But they ended up on opposite ends of a trios match. And Andre did this move back then where his opponent would be sitting in the corner and he would come over and he would smash his ass in his opponent's face, like a butt slam. Well, today was not the day for a butt slam because whatever it was that Andre was suffering from, let's just say that Bad News, he took a diarrhea bath that day. And Bam Bam Bigelow was in the match, and he's talked about this too. And the way he described it, like it was just oozing out everywhere. I mean, I'm sorry for the visual, but yeah. And so Bad News gets out of the ring as quickly as possible so he wouldn't get sick in front of all the fans. And he just sprints backstage, jumps right in the shower. Thank God the match was never filmed. It would have been easy for Bad News to deny it and say, oh, that's all made up. That never happened. But he admitted it. It did happen. It gives new meaning to the name Bad News Brown, doesn't it? Holy shit. Literally.